I sent my parents $550 a week so they could live comfortably. But on my kid's birthday they never showed. When I called, Dad snapped, "We don't count your family." I hung up shaking and shut down every account in my name. 40 minutes later my mom went crazy. I was done being their daughter the moment my father said my son didn't count. You'd think after everything I did for them, everything I sacrificed, they'd have some respect. Or even just basic human decency. But no. My parents treated me like an extension of their problems, like my only role in life was to make theirs easier. They saw my kindness as weakness and for too long I let them. I'm Barbara. I'm 34. And I'm finally telling this story because for years I let them guilt me into silence. I kept hoping if I just did a little more, gave a little more, they'd finally change. But they didn't. And now I'm the one who changed. I hope someone out there hears this and understands what it means to reach your breaking point. Started 3 years ago when I began sending them money every single week. $550 like clockwork. They always had a reason. Dad's blood pressure meds. The rent was going up. The car broke down. Mom needed new glasses. They never once said thank you. They just acted like it was expected. Like it was mine and Rachel's job to keep them afloat. Rachel's my younger sister. She's always been their favorite. Blonde, perfect teeth, did pageants as a kid. They'd brag about her job, her boyfriend, her haircut. I was just the responsible one. The one who handled their bills, made the calls, drove them to appointments, sent money. They never asked Rachel for a dime. But she sided with me when things started getting worse. Even she saw it. My husband Tyler used to ask why I did it. Why I let them treat me that way. I didn't have an answer. I just couldn't imagine cutting them off. No matter how cold they were to us, especially to our son. They never bonded with him. Never babysat. Barely acknowledged his birthdays. Mom once said she didn't feel connected to him because he looked too much like Tyler. So I tried. I sent photos. Invited them over. Included them in everything. Last weekend was his 3rd birthday. We planned a small backyard party. Nothing extravagant, but he was excited for weeks. He picked out a cake shaped like a bulldozer and kept talking about how Grandma and Grandpa were coming. We even printed a little sign that said, "Welcome, family." They never came. I waited until after the candles were blown out, after the guests left, after my son fell asleep with cake on his shirt and one shoe on. Then I called them. Dad picked up. I didn't even ask why they didn't show. I just said, "We were waiting for you." He said, "We don't count your family." Then hung up. I sat there holding the phone, not feeling sadness or anger, just this eerie calm. Like something had shifted inside me. I opened my laptop and shut everything down. Every bill in my name gone. I canceled the utilities, disconnected the grocery card, closed the bank account they used. I called their landlord and gave him their number. Told him not to contact me again. 40 minutes later, Mom started calling like a maniac. Left 7 voicemails in 10 minutes. She called me selfish. Said I was destroying them. Said I owed them. That they were my blood. She tried calling Rachel. Then Tyler. Then showed up at my grandmother's house screaming so loud the neighbors came outside. But Grandma already knew. I told her what happened that night, and for the first time she didn't try to defend them. When Mom started ranting in the driveway, Grandma walked outside calm as ever. And then, with the kind of slap that ends generations of denial, she shut her up. She said, "How dare you treat your daughter like that? You're lucky she gave you anything at all. And now it's over." I watched it all happen from the car. My son was in the back seat, asleep with a little plastic truck still in his hand. And that was the moment I realized, I wasn't the daughter anymore. I was the mother now. And I was going to protect him from the people who never protected me. After the slap, everything went quiet for a few days. No calls. No texts. Just this eerie silence, like they were regrouping. Planning their next move. I wasn't naive enough to think it was over. I knew my mother. Silence was just the eye of her storm. Rachel checked in every morning. She kept asking if I was okay, if I was sure about what I did. I told her I was more than sure. I was free. For the first time in my life, I wasn't constantly checking my phone or calculating how much money I had left after taking care of their bills. The silence broke on Thursday morning. My work email pinged and there it was. A forwarded message from our joint cell phone provider. Apparently they tried upgrading their phones on my account. Both of them. Maxed out models. I'd already shut the account down days earlier. I replied to the email just to be sure and got confirmation. The attempt had been blocked. But still. The nerve. That same day, Tyler found a letter wedged into our mailbox. It wasn't stamped. Someone had driven to our house to leave it. My name was on the front, written in my mother's handwriting. Inside was a single piece of paper. "You can ignore us, but don't forget, family is blood. And your little boy has our blood too." That was the line. That was the moment revenge became something more than emotional. I took a photo of the letter and drove straight to Grandma's. She read it twice, sat down and told me to stay calm. Then she said something that caught me off guard. It's time they learn what survival looks like without you. She pulled out a small notepad where she'd written down every major expense I'd covered over the last 3 years. She'd been keeping track. Rent, utilities, medical bills, phone plans, groceries, car repairs, even a few Amazon purchases. I couldn't believe it. She said, "We're not going to hurt them. We're going to show them." I started small. I called their dentist's office and had my name removed from the file. Same with the pharmacy. Then I emailed their landlord again and asked for a copy of their lease. I just wanted to see it, see what kind of mess they were in. They hadn't paid rent that month. The next day, my mom called me from a number I didn't recognize. I let it ring. Then Rachel texted. They just showed up at my work. I called her immediately. Mom and Dad had walked into Rachel's office like everything was normal. Asked her for $300 to get through the week. Rachel told them no. She said, "If you want money, ask the daughter you actually respect." Dad lost it. Started raising his voice. Said she'd always been a disappointment. That night, Rachel came over with a bottle of wine and something in her eyes I hadn't seen before. Distance. They don't care about any of us. They only care about what they can get. I nodded. She leaned in and said, "So, what's next?" And that's when I told her about the account. The one they didn't know I had. Back when I was still handling everything, paying their rent, their bills, refilling their prescriptions, I set up a side account. It was supposed to be a safety net for emergencies. My name only. No one else knew it existed except Tyler and Grandma. What they didn't know was that every time I sent them $550, I added $100 more into that side account. Quietly. Every week. By the time I cut them off, there was a little over $15,000 sitting there. I told Rachel about it that night, after she'd had 2 glasses of wine and was still reeling from what our dad said to her. Her face went blank when I mentioned the account. Then she asked the same thing Tyler did when I first started it. "Why didn't you use it for yourself?" Because I wasn't ready to walk away back then. I thought maybe I'd need it for them. But now I had a different use in mind. The first thing I did was hire a process server. Quietly. I pulled every receipt, every transfer, every documented expense I'd covered. Grandma co-signed a statement detailing how long I'd been financially supporting them. It wasn't about suing them. I didn't want their money. It was about establishing a clear record of how much I gave before they started spreading lies. Because I knew my parents. The moment they realized the free ride was truly over, they'd get loud. They'd start telling people I abandoned them, that I never helped, that I was a cold daughter poisoned by my husband. I was going to cut that story off before it started. 2 days later, they were officially served. Not with a lawsuit, just a formal notice that all financial ties had been severed and that any further attempts to use my name for credit or bills would be considered fraud. Rachel told me they freaked out. My dad screamed at the mailman. My mom sat in the driveway chain-smoking for hours. Then came the text. Just one sentence from my mother. "I hope your son never treats you the way you treated us." It didn't hurt. Not anymore. What did shake me was what came next. Grandma called in the middle of the night. She said someone had broken into her shed. Nothing major stolen, just the lock broken and some things thrown around. The only thing missing? A box of my old school stuff she had kept. Report cards, baby pictures, letters I wrote as a kid. We both knew exactly who had done it. I didn't sleep that night. Tyler sat with me in the living room while I went through every security camera we had. I checked my son's room 3 times. I couldn't explain it, but something in me flipped. They weren't just trying to guilt me anymore. They were trying to get to me through my past. Through my child. So I started phase 2. If they wanted to dig into my life, fine. But they were going to find something else. Something that would blow back right in their faces. And I knew exactly where to start. I called the one person they thought they had wrapped around their finger. Uncle Dan. Uncle Dan was my dad's younger brother. Grew up in his shadow, always getting blamed for everything that went wrong in the family. He moved out of state years ago after a huge falling out none of us really understood. All I knew was that my parents hated him. Talked about him like he was a drunk loser who never amounted to anything. But I remembered something. One night when I was 16, I overheard a late-night call between Mom and Grandma. Grandma was furious. She said, "You and Alan stole what was never yours and Dan has every right to be angry." At the time, I thought it was just about inheritance drama or something petty. But now that they were escalating, now that they were sending threats and breaking into sheds, I wanted answers. I wanted leverage. So I called Uncle Dan. Told him everything. About the money. About the birthday. About the letter. The slap. The break-in. He went quiet for a moment. Then he said, "I've been waiting for this day for 20 years. I asked what he meant. And what he told me turned everything upside down. Apparently, when their parents passed, my grandparents on my dad's side, There was an inheritance left for all 3 sons. Except there was a catch. My grandparents didn't trust my father with money. Not because he was irresponsible. Because he was manipulative. So they wrote up a will that divided the estate 3 ways, but with one condition. Barbara's portion will go to her directly when she turns 30. Barbara. Me. My grandparents left me money. Not my parents. Not Uncle Dan. Me. Uncle Dan had a copy of the original will. But when my dad got to the lawyer first, he claimed I didn't want anything to do with it. That I'd declined it. I was 17. I didn't even know they died until 2 weeks after the funeral. Uncle Dan said he suspected something, but back then he had no proof. And no money to fight it. He offered to send me everything. Documents, emails, even a letter my grandmother wrote me that was never delivered. I gave him my address. 3 days later, a package arrived. Inside was a handwritten letter dated 12 years ago. If you're reading this, it means you finally saw through the lies. You were always meant for better things. Don't let them take that from you. I felt sick. I sat on the kitchen floor reading it again and again. Tyler didn't say a word. He just sat next to me. I called Rachel. He came over that night. Read the letter. Read the will. She didn't say much either. Just whispered they're monsters. But that wasn't even the worst of it. The next morning Rachel called me panicked. Said she got an anonymous email with an attachment. A folder of old pictures. Someone had taken photos of her house. Her front door. Her car. Her bedroom window. The email just said, "Pick a side. Fast." She called the cops immediately. They said without a clear threat there wasn't much they could do. But now we knew, it wasn't just about guilt anymore. It was intimidation. They were trying to scare us back into submission. And maybe that would have worked once. But now I had a copy of the will. I had the original letter. I had Uncle Dan. I had Rachel. I had Grandma. And they had nothing. So I went to a lawyer. And I told him everything. The lawyer was calm but blunt. He said, if what you're showing me holds up, this is going to get ugly for them, fast. He reviewed the documents from Uncle Dan, the letter from my grandmother, and the paper trail of financial abuse I'd quietly compiled over the years. Then he pulled something up on his screen and turned it toward me. There's a trust in your name. Still active. My heart dropped. I didn't know what to say. The trust was real. Established by my grandparents with a provision that no funds could be accessed until I turned 30. The same year I started sending my parents money every week. They had spent 3 years draining their daughter's bank account while secretly sitting on mine. The worst part, they'd forged my signature 3 times to withdraw small amounts for emergencies. $2,000 here. $1,500 there. The lawyer said we could press charges. That this went far beyond family drama. This was theft. Fraud. I didn't give him an answer. Not yet. That night Rachel came over again. She was visibly shaken. She'd just gotten off the phone with Mom. Apparently Dad had a breakdown. Screaming in the house, punching the cabinets. Said he was tired of being disrespected, tired of being cut off like trash. Mom told Rachel to convince me to call off the lawyer. Said I was destroying the family for money that was never mine anyway. That phrase stuck with me. Never mine anyway. It was like a window into how they really saw me. A tool. A resource. Not a person. Rachel for once didn't play neutral. She told Mom if they contacted her again she'd block them. She'd already filed a report about the creepy photos. Then she told me something unexpected. Remember that silver bracelet Mom always wore? I nodded. It was supposedly a family heirloom from her great-grandmother. Rachel laughed bitterly. He pawned it last month. For $80. I shouldn't have been surprised. But I was. Because that was her pattern. Building things up with fake sentiment, then selling them for quick cash the second they became inconvenient. 2 days later, everything cracked open. Grandma called. She said my parents were officially evicted. No rent paid for 2 months. My name was no longer on anything and they hadn't figured out how to survive without me. They tried begging the landlord to let them stay. Said their daughter had abandoned them. That she had money and was hiding it out of spite. He wasn't interested. That same evening, Tyler noticed someone parked across from our house. An old blue sedan. Engine running. Just sitting there. He stepped outside. The car sped off. We called the police and gave them everything. The photos Rachel received, the break-in at Grandma's, the forged trust withdrawals, the harassment. They opened a case. Then the next morning I got a text from an unknown number. You don't get to win. But that's the thing. I wasn't trying to win. I was just done losing. The final call came on a Tuesday. Not from my mother. Not from my father. From the sheriff's department. They'd been picked up after trying to use my old ID at a check cashing place. The clerk recognized my name and flagged it. When the cops searched them, they found a folder with Rachel's address and several photos inside. They weren't just spiraling. They were planning something. The officer said I should consider filing a restraining order. I didn't hesitate. I filed one for myself and one for my son. Rachel did the same the next morning. That was it. That was the line they crossed with no way back. And for the first time since this entire nightmare began, I felt peace. Grandma invited us all over the weekend after the court order was signed. Me, Tyler, Rachel, and my son. She made pot roast and wore her old pearls. Said she felt like celebrating. At one point she pulled me aside and handed me a small box. Inside was a locket. Not expensive, not flashy. But when I opened it, there was a photo of me as a toddler and another of my son from the birthday party. She said, "This is the family that matters." Then she added something else. "You know, I slapped your mother because I was angry. But if I ever see her again, it won't just be one slap." We laughed. For the first time in weeks. Tyler and I used part of the trust money to finally fix up the backyard. Nothing extravagant, just enough to build a little playhouse. My son calls it his work zone. He's obsessed with tools now. Rachel moved into a small place of her own, a few miles away. She comes over every Friday for dinner and helps babysit on the weekends. We've never been closer. As for my parents, they vanished. The last we heard, they were staying with a cousin out in the desert. No car. No job. No money. Uncle Dan sent me a photo a few weeks later. He'd run into them at a gas station. Said they didn't even recognize him. Just two empty faces walking out of a convenience store with a bag of chips and a six-pack. I didn't feel bad. Not even a little. Because this wasn't revenge. Not really. This was correction. This was what happens when you spend your whole life burning bridges and finally run out of wood. And I finally understood something Grandma once told me when I was 16 and crying after another fight with my mom. Sometimes the only way to move forward is to let the dead things stay buried. So I did. And we're happy now. Quiet. Normal. Free. They don't count my family. Good. Because they're not part of it anymore.